Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, 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 Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada, Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada, 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 Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvikacharya Satira Sada Shishima His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakurti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinda Ki Jai Jai Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Gaurani Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 58, verse number 8, and I may do 9, but we'll begin with 8. Tam aha prema vaiklavya Rudha kandarshu lochana Rudhan kandarshu lochana Smaranti Tan bahun kleshan klesha payatma darshanam tam aha prema vaiklavya ruda kanta shrulochana Smaranti tan bahun kleshan klesha payatma darshana tam aha prema vaiklavya ruda kanta shrulochana Smaranti stan bahun kleshan klesha payatma darshanam tamaham prema vaiklavya ruda kandar shulochana Smaranti san bahu kleshan klesha payatma darshana Damaha prema vaiklavya Ruda kanta shrulochana Smaranti tan bahu kleshan klesha payatma darshanam tamaham prema vaiklavya ruda kanta shrulochana smaranti tam bahun kleshan klesha payatma darshana tamaham prema vaiklavya lochanam smaranti tan kaluteshan klesha payatma darshana tam to him aha she said prema of love vaiklavya due to the distress rudha choking kanta whose throat ashru filled with tears lochana whose eyes smaranti remembering Tan, those. Bahun, many. Kleshan, pains. Klesha, of pain. Apaya, for the dispelling. Atma, himself. Darshanam, who shows. Translation by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So overcome by love that her throat choked up and her eyes filled with tears, Queen Kunti remembered the many troubles she and her sons had endured. Thus she addressed Lord Krishna, who appears before his devotees to drive away their distress. Please repeat. So overcome by love that her throat choked up and her eyes filled with tears, Queen Kunti remembered the many troubles she and her sons had endured. Thus she addressed Lord Krishna, who appears before his devotees to drive away their distress. There are three tikas here by the Goswamis, a very short one by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and longer ones by Jiva Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, she spoke to Krishna, the sight of whose limbs extinguishes all misery. And that is referring to this line, Klesha Payatma Darshanam. Jiva Goswami writes, remembering the many famous sufferings, such as Duryodhana administering poison, she was overcome with prema, and then spoke to Krishna. On seeing him, a person destroys suffering in the heart, or who shows himself to destroy the devotee's suffering. In either case, this description is an affectionate scolding of the Lord by Shukadev on remembering the Pandavas' suffering. Actually, their suffering was created by the Leela Shakti with its variety of movements in order to increase the Sthayi Bhava through the Vyabhachari Bhavas like anticipated joy. Remembering those many sufferings, her suffering disappeared because Krishna then appeared within her mind. Thus, by remembering, she was overcome with prema. Sanat Goswami writes, remembering the many famous sufferings of the relatives, Kleshan, such as Duryodhana administering poison to Bhima, with arousal of a feeling of helplessness, she was overcome with prema and then spoke to Krishna. He now showed himself not during the suffering, but when they had attained a kingdom after the destruction of suffering, Klesha Payatma Darshanam, or by showing himself now, no more suffering would occur in the future. She became joyful. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyanan Gyanan Shalakaya Chakshu Umilitangena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swabadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Badaya Krishna Bastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminitadamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bacharani Nirvasesa Shunyavadi Prasachadeshtarni Vanchakalpa Charubiascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyebacha Patitanam Pavanavyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. There are 335 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam. 90 are in the 10th canto, which is about 20, actually is 28% or something like that of the Bhagavatam. So over a quarter of the Bhagavatam consists of the smiling face of Sri Krishna. And here we're seeing the smiling face of Sri Krishna, and we are privy to this meeting that's happening now between Krishna and his beloved Pandavas. This is happening after the first shorter period of exile. That's after the house of Lac is burned. They've gone off into self-imposed hiding for a period of time. During that time, they marry Draupadi, and now they are back in Hastinapur / Indraprastha, because they come back to Hastinapur, and then Yudhishthira is awarded half the kingdom, and that's in Indraprastha. That's alluded to here in this last tika of that I read today, Sanat Goswami, where he says, he now showed himself not during the suffering, but when they had attained a kingdom, after the destruction of suffering, which is klesha payatma darshanam, by seeing the Lord, all suffering is destroyed. So this is a kind of an interlude in the suffering, because suffering will be coming back again, because there'll be the gambling match in the 14 years of exile, and of course the war will come, and then there'll be all sorts of suffering there too. But Queen Kunti here is going to have only two prayers, the next two verses, two prayers, but she's alluding to the fact that even though that there's suffering, that suffering is not suffering because she's remembering the Lord in this suffering. Queen Kunti remembered the many troubles she and her sons had endured. She remembers these sufferings, but she's remembering these sufferings in connection with the Supreme Lord, so that the suffering becomes a cause of what is says here, smaranti, that remembering this suffering's helping her remember Krishna, and therefore this suffering is not a bad thing. It's actually helping her become more and more attached to Krishna. Now, these two prayers and this point in the Bhagavatam connects actually to a later incident that happens. However, this later incident actually is in the first canto, because the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is a sort of introduction to the whole, it is an introduction to the whole conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadev Goswami, Shukadev Goswami's instructions to Parikshit Maharaj. The first canto is actually happens after the events of the 10th canto, because it's after the war. And so there we see Queen Kunti speaking after the war, also recounting the sufferings that had happened in her life. And these sufferings, she makes it very clear, were not something bad for her, but were something that she actually relished in the sense that it helped her become more Krishna conscious. So the whole Bhagavatam is actually helping us really become Krishna conscious, because in the first canto, of course, Krishna is introduced to us, and then he, in one sense, vanishes from cantos 2 through 9, because there Krishna himself's not present, but his incarnations are, and the stories about him are there, about his activities and his disappearance, especially third canto, where we have the instructions of Maitreya to Vidura. So let's go back to the first canto, the prayers of Queen Kunti, and take a look at two of the prayers, which are very much in the mood of what we're hearing today, where Kunti's in tears before the Lord, just thankful how the Lord has saved her, remembering Smaranti. And then the Lord's glance has swept away all the pain. That word pain is klesha. So sometimes we have the adiatmic klesha, the adidaivic klesha, and the adibhuta klesha. These are the different kleshas of the mind, of the body, of other living entities, and of nature. There's all these miseries in this material world, the kleshas. Queen Kunti in verse 1:8-24, she says, "My dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from a poisoned cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Ashvatthama," because this is happening right after the final insult, practically speaking, is that after the whole war is over, Ashvatthama, first he kills all the children, the sons of the Pandavas, and then he comes back after being spared. His life is spared, actually, by the Pandavas. He comes back and he tries to kill Parikshit Maharaj in the womb of Uttara. And so, of course, Krishna appears as Sudarshan Chakra within her womb and protects Parikshit in the womb. So this is the final. It's just one thing after another, and Krishna has protected her. So Kunti is actually remembering this and the trouble they were put into in a way that is positive. How it is positive is because she sees how Krishna has intervened every time within her life of a lot of cares and troubles, and has saved her. Why? Because she's a devotee. Why? Because she has a mission. Why? Because that mission is to establish the rule of the Pandavas on the throne, to reestablish Dharma in this world. Devotees have a purpose in this world. Devotees have a mission. Some of us have a mission which isn't very big, but it's still a mission. It may be to preach to 10 people in our life who become devotees. It may be that we make a sweet ball one day that someone eats and they become a devotee. It may be that someone distributes a book that someone picks up, like myself, actually. Some devotee who I don't know who it was, distributed a Bhagavad Gita to me, and that Bhagavad Gita changed my life. So we have a mission. So Krishna is protecting us in that mission. Oftentimes, though, because of our doubts and our fears and our impurities, we become very disturbed, not knowing that the boat that we're riding on is unsinkable. Why does a person fear anything? A person fears because we think that we're our body and we think that we're going to suffer some kind of fate which is horrible. But if you were on a ship in the ocean and you knew that ship was unsinkable, couldn't be knocked down, no matter how big a wave might have been, it might be unpleasant at times, a little rocky as it blasts through the horrible weather, but you know it absolutely is safe. That's the faith of a pure devotee. The pure devotee knows that he's absolutely or she's absolutely safe in all circumstances, because the pure devotee has unflinching faith. It doesn't mean the pure devotee knows what the future holds exactly, but the pure devotee knows that Krishna will protect him or her in any circumstance, even if that protection means that maybe the body's killed. The protection's there. There's never any fear. So therefore, Prabhupada, he was without fear coming to America at an age where now we experience, some of us, that how is it possible to come to a foreign country with no money, and the health isn't so good, and expect to succeed because he has no fear. It's not that he knows that Krishna has guaranteed it. It's not that Arjuna knows that it's guaranteed. Well, he knows kind of it's guaranteed. Krishna said, I've killed everybody. But you still have to fight. So Krishna guarantees, but that guarantee, we don't know exactly what the guarantee looks like. And that's faith. And that faith comes from association with persons who know Krishna. That's the pure devotees. Now in the next verse, she elaborates further. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we no longer see repeated births and deaths. So we welcome, it's basically saying this, that, and Prabhupada said, don't wish this, actually. Don't wish for calamities. It's not really, we're not on that platform. But the idea is that in the calamities that happen in life, if we can see Krishna again and again, that means that we will become free from repeated births and deaths. Prabhupada writes in his purport, in the first paragraph, he talks about the 4 different persons who surrender unto him, pious persons, the verse from the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And he says, therefore, for a pious person, if there is some calamity, there is no other alternative than to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Constant remembering the lotus feet of the Lord means preparing for liberation from birth and death. Therefore, even though there are so-called calamities, they are welcome because they give us an opportunity to remember the Lord, which means liberation. So these come in all stages of our devotional life. We should not think that the calamities that were experienced by persons like Queen Kunti or the Pandavas, which are extreme calamities, are experienced by them in the same way that we do. They experience them. But because of their pure devotion, that experience is, as is alluded to by Jiva Goswami in his Tika, where he says that they are arrangements of Leela Shakti, and therefore they're vyabhichari bhavas, like the fear and the distress and the disgust or whatever, kind of these bad things. It sounds like they're bad in the material world. They're not really sources of the kind of distress we have, but they're sources of an ecstatic distress, and that's meant to heighten their sthaya bhava, their eternal relationship with the Lord, their friendship or their parental mood or their servitude. But for us, in the beginning, it may just be, Krishna, please save me now because I can't understand why this is happening. But not asking Krishna to relieve us of the distress just to be relieved of the distress. Like, oh, God, please, save my uncle from cancer. Or, oh, God, I can't pay my bills. Please help me pay my bills. That may be okay for a beginner. It's better than thinking that there is no God and everything, maybe I better rob a bank or something, or some sort of scheme in this world. Better to surrender. However, that point being made, that surrender isn't the kind of surrender that we're talking about in the case of the Pandavas and Kunti. That their surrender is a deep, complete surrender of love. That's prema. It's not quite the prema of the devotees in Vrindavan, whose prema is so deep they have no ability to even step back and understand that Krishna is God. In other words, Kunti and the Pandavas can understand that we were saved because Krishna is so great, he's able to create these miracles. Whereas in Vrindavan, when Krishna is lifting Govardhan Hill, his friends are thinking, we better help. And Krishna's hand is trembling when he looks at the gopis. And Balaram's getting worried. Mother Yashoda, when she sees Krishna in the coils of Kaliya, she's not thinking, well, of course he's going to get out of this because he's God. She's thinking, oh my God, can you save my boy? So this is a little detached, but still they have this pure love. And Prabhupada then goes on to say, one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are accepted as the most suitable boat for crossing the ocean of nescience, can achieve liberation as easily as one leaps over the holes made by the hoofs of a calf. Such persons are meant to reside in the abode of the Lord, and they have nothing to do with a place where there is danger at every step. Danger at every step. This material world is dukkhalayam, a shasvatam. It's a nasty temporary place where every moment there is the possibility of disaster. And at every moment there's also the possibility of some illusory pleasure. Of course, the disasters are also in one sense illusory because they're all happening on the platform of ahankara, of us dealing in this material world, in this false identity, of this false time. I mean, it's true. It's not like, it doesn't exist. But it exists like a dream. Prabhupada will say this later in the purport here. But the point being is this, is that liberation is given very easily by the Lord for anyone who surrenders to his lotus feet. But prema is a little more difficult. Liberation is a step towards prema, or pure love. Actually, if we stop for a second and realize that we're already liberated. I thought liberation meant I would have no troubles. I would be able to, om and drift into some sort of state of bliss. Liberation may not look like that at every moment. We may still, and we do still, suffer the pains of adhyatmik, adhibodhik, adhidaivik. I mean, it happens. That's this real. But a devotee is liberated, meaning that a devotee is no longer bound by the karma and the modes of material nature. Of course, the modes push, but for a devotee who's trying to become a pure devotee, the modes loosen. But we still suffer to the extent that we maintain these sort of longings for the material world. And of course we do, because we've got so many samskaras through so many births that we cannot actually completely loosen ourselves from that. I mean, we see even in an example of someone like Bharat Maharaj, who had reached bhava, or ecstatic, symptoms of love of God, not quite prema, that samskaras come and get you. His samskara was some mercy. I want to be merciful to a little deer. And then he gets caught up in the little deer. And that samskara causes repeated births. So that's an example for us. We know that maybe some samskaras are going to ensnare us in this life. However, because we're devotees, and as Krishna says, declare it boldly in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, my devotees, I always protect my devotee. He never perishes. And even though we may engage in some activities which are not very savory, because we're fixed in the consciousness of serving Krishna, we've made that vow, then we're protected, even though at times we're really scared. I mean, actually, many of us had the experience of being on a roller coaster ride. You're never really in danger in a roller coaster, except if it's in disrepair. But they do everything to make sure that you don't leave your body on the roller coaster. But it's still pretty scary, because your body's being thrown around and it's going fast and dipping, whatever. So we may still experience that. And Prabhupada experienced that. But of course, when Prabhupada experienced these things, or these Pandavas experience it, they're experiencing it in a level where they really have the peace of mind that nothing can go wrong. The material world, Prabhupada goes on, is certified by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita as a dangerous place full of calamities. Less intelligent persons prepare plans to adjust to those calamities without knowing that the nature of this place is itself full of calamities. We can't get rid of calamities in this world. And Prabhupada would talk about planning commissions and UN and all these different things that people come up with trying to mitigate the problems. The climate catastrophe that's happening. Well, how are you going to mitigate the problems? You're not going to mitigate the problems by, a few electric cars here and there and some solar panels. I mean, it's not going to happen. If you do solve it, you're going to create another problem. In 1900, New York City was in a great crisis because there was horse manure everywhere. Oh, it was a horrible problem, a health problem. By 1920, they had no more horse manure problems because they had cars. But by 1940, they had pollution from the cars. Pollution from the cars. Then in the 1970s, they cleaned up the pollution from the cars. But then now, because the cars still emit heat and these gases, climate altering gases, we got another problem. We can't solve the problem. Just the pollution just goes from gross to more subtle or whatever it does, but we can't solve the problems in this material world. They have no information, these people, like the materialists, of the abode of the Lord, which is full of bliss and without a trace of calamity. Even though there may be calamities for fun, the duty of the sane person, therefore, is to be undisturbed by worldly calamities, which are sure to happen in all circumstances. Suffering of all sorts is of unavoidable misfortune. Suffering all sorts of unavoidable misfortunes. One should make progress in spiritual life because that is the mission of human life. The mission of our life is to become Krishna conscious. And of course, there's that verse by Lord Brahma, Tate Nukampam Sushamiksha Manino, which says that the devotee is ready to suffer all sorts of calamities and all sorts of karma with full faith in the Supreme Lord, knowing that by acting in Krishna consciousness, one will become Krishna conscious and obtain the goal. And in the purport, which is attributed to Sridhar Swami, he says, just like a son who's the legal inheritor of his father's fortune only has to stay alive to get that fortune. So we have to stay alive in Krishna consciousness to obtain the fortune. And we can stay alive in Krishna consciousness if we keep practicing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The spirit soul is transcendental to all material calamities. Therefore, the so-called calamities are called false. Now, Prabhupada used that word, called false. They're not false while they're happening. When the fire is burning, you can't meditate it away. You have to get out of the burning building. However, that burning building and the whole incident is that not an eternal activity. It's just happening on this temporary plane. A man may, and then Prabhupada clarifies it here, a man may see a tiger swallowing him in a dream, and he may cry for this calamity. In the middle of the dream. It's horrible. It's actually happening in the dream, in a sense. Actually, there is no tiger, and there is no suffering. It is simply a case of dreams. So what's the only way to get out of a dream is to wake up. We have to wake up. Then when we wake up, we see, oh, that was a dream. In the same way, all the calamities of life are said to be dreams. If someone is lucky enough to get in contact with the Lord by devotional service, it is all gain. Contact with the Lord by any one of the 9 devotional services is always a forward step on the path of going back home, back to Godhead. So that's the goal, is to wake up. And then we wake up and we realize, hold a second, my heart is pounding and I'm really afraid. But I just woke up and realized that's really not important. What does it look like to wake up for us now? That means that when something happens to us, hey, if you're 70 years old, you're going to have some problems with your body. And if you're 14 years old, you're going to have some problems with adolescence. It's just going to happen. It's just there. You can't get rid of it. But if we wake up and realize we're watching a movie and we're the player in that movie, we observe ourselves. I mean, this is all in the 13th and 14th chapters of the Gita. Being able to observe being the observer, observing the body and the field of activities. And there's mechanical ways to do that. In fact, in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, or maybe it's the 5th, it says that some people are inclined to become to know God through empirical, philosophical understandings, and others through devotional service. But the person who actually knows the truth knows that obtaining that goal either way is the same, whether you do it through some mechanical process or we do it through devotion. However, in this age of Kali, we're not very good at mechanics. Because I'm speaking for myself. I'm just completely a mess. I can't do this stuff. However, I can turn to Krishna, I can turn to Prabhupada and say, help me, please help me. Because I know this is not my home. And therefore, please reveal to me the ultimate understanding of life, which is that I'm your servant for eternity in a relationship, which I don't even know of yet. And I can't really even determine it. Sometimes we think about the relations in the spiritual world. And sometimes we think in terms of like gopis or manjaris. How about in terms of like, maybe someone is Krishna's belt? Belt. Everything's alive. Wouldn't you like to be Krishna's belt? Or Krishna's flute? Well, that may be taken. Or one of Radharani's earrings or whatever. We don't know. We can't determine. But it's there. That's our reality, not this reality here in this world where you load 16 tons and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. It's like, it's a mess. It's never going to be great. But it's all great all the time, forever in Goloka Vrindavan. And that's our goal by Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any, a minute, yeah. To samskaras. Well, we're so full of samskaras, we can't clean them up ourselves. Although sometimes people in the mechanical process try to overcome samskaras. But what we do, it's like the samskaras can be seen back in the old days when there were such things as tapes. You remember when there were tapes? Cassettes, yeah. And if you had something on it, you didn't like it, you could re-record over it. Right. We got to re-record over everything with Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We just have to re-record. The trouble is what we do is sometimes we're re-recording and we think, I wonder what was on that tape before anyway. Let me take a little listen. And then we have a little gap. And we're going, Hare Krishna, and then blah, 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 Hare Krishna. We have to go back to those gaps and try to re-record over all the gaps. Takes a time, takes a while. But if we're determined, we can do it fairly quickly. And if we're not so determined, it's going to take us longer. The more we want to listen to those old songs, the longer it takes. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada's mercy, we can all be here today. Yeah.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Andani Yasa Sakalem Priya Priti Manti Asyan Dipan Dikayanti Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Adipurusham
Jeev Jago Gora Chandra Bole Gota Nidra Jaya Maya Vicha Chira Kole Gota Nidra Jaya Maya Vicha Chira Kole Kota Nidra Jayo Maya Pita Chirakole Kota Nidra Jayo Maya Pita Chiramole Bajibo Bolia Eshe Samsara Bitore Bajibo Bolia Eshe Samsara Bitore Bulia Rohile to me Abid Yarabare Bulia Rohile to me Abid Yarabare Tomare Loite Ami Hoinu Avatara Tomare Loite Ami Hoinu Avatara Ami Bina Bandu Ara Keache Tamara Ami Bina Bandu Ara Keache Amara Eneche Yashaudi Maya Nashi Baralagi Eneche Ashaudi Maya Nashi Baralagi Harinama Maha Mantra Loud to me Magi Harinama Maha Mantra Loud to me Magi Bhakti Vinoda Prabhu Charane Pariya Bhakti Vinoda Prabhu Charane Pariya Say Hari Nama Mantra Loilo Magiya Say Hari Nama Mantra Loilo Magiya Jeev Jago Gora Chandra Bole Jeev Jago Gora Chandra Mole Kota Nidra Jayo Maya Picha Chira Kole Kota Nidra Jayo Maya Picha Chira Eneche Ashaudi Maya Nashi Baralagi Eneche Ashaudi Maya Nashi Baralagi Hari Nama Maha Mantra Loilo Magiya Hari Nama Maha Mantra Loud to me Magi Harinama Maha Mantra Loud to me Magi Harinama Maha Mantra Loud to me Magi Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur. Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radhe Jaya Radha Golokananda, Golokananda, Radhe Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radhe Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radha Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki jai. Lord Gaurachandra is calling, wake up, sleeping soul, wake up, sleeping soul. How long will you sleep in the web of the witch called Maya? You have forgotten the way of devotional service and are lost in the cycle of birth and death. I have descended just to save you. I am your only true friend. Other than me, what friend do you have? I have brought the medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you suffer. Take this great chant for deliverance, Maha Mantra, the names of Hari. Shalakimo Thakur, falling at the Lord's lotus feet, take shelter of the Harinam mantra, the Lord's holy names. Haribo. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam, Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam, Shreya Kairavya Chandrika Vitarnam, Vidyavadu Jivanam, Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, Pratipanam Purnamrita Swadanam, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, Nam Namakari Bahudan Nija Sarva Shaktis, Tatrapitani Amita Smarane Nakala, Etadrishi Tavakripa Bhagavan Mamapi, Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjani Nanuraga, Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarorapi Suhishuna, Amani Namanadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari, Nadaram Najanam Nasundarim, Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye, Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare, Bhavatad Bhaktir Ohaitaki Twai, Ainanda Tanruja Kinkaram, Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Budao, Kripayata Vabada Pankaja, Stita Duli Sadrashim Vachintaya, Nayanam Galadashu Daraya, Varanam Gad Gadu Hridaya Gira, Pulakarnishitam Vapukada, Tavanama Grahaneba Vishyati, Yugayatam Namishena, Chakshusha Pravashayatam, Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename, Ashlisha Vapadamratam Panastumam, Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva, Yatatatava Vidadatulam Pato, Mat Prananatastusa Eva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharajnanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? Oh, Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Sri Shastika ki jai.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki
Jai. Haribo. Thank you for addressing the deity so nicely, Mother Chaitanya, and thanking all the cooks in the kitchen for making such a nice offering. Hare Krishna.